Welcome back. This is 535, and I'm Susan Davis, and I'm joined by Congressman Greg Casar, who is also the chairman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Susan.
If I had to think of a word that I've heard the most in politics this year, it's probably affordability. And the Progressive Caucus has recently outlined a fairly ambitious piece of legislation. I'm just going to name a couple of things. It would lower drug prices, cap childcare costs, crack down on utility companies, ban surveillance pricing, increase paid time off. It's a lot in there. What's the through line in this agenda, and how did you put the pieces together?
Well, look, people are hearing the word affordability all the time now because Americans are hurting. Life is just too damn expensive, and corporations are ripping people off, while too often politicians here in Washington, D.C. collect checks from those corporations rather than help out with the problem. And so we don't think that affordability is a hoax, like Donald Trump has said, but it also can't just be a buzzword without anything behind it. And so we've released this package of 10 fresh, new ideas that would make your life less expensive while cracking down on the ultra wealthy and the corporations that are making things expensive. And so the Progressive Caucus put together this slate of things that will save every American family money, save you money on your utilities and childcare and housing, make sure you don't get ripped off by AI companies, and then ban big money in politics so that we can make it all stick. That's the kind of agenda that we know actually doesn't just play well in progressive districts. It's the kind of agenda that we know is popular nationwide, where people are just paying too much.
I mean, this is, I would think, fair to characterize it as pretty populist, a populist agenda. A lot has been said about the Democratic Party bleeding working class voters to the Republican Party. Is it fair to characterize this as a direct appeal to those voters that have been turning away from your party in recent elections?
Yes. I mean, the reason I'm a Democrat is because of the FDR era and the LBJ era, where we created Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, defeated fascism around the world, built the union movement for working class people and with working class people, and then took on the powerful that were screwing people over. And I think we've got to get back to that. And that's what we're doing with this new affordability agenda. Like, if I was just to rant for just 1 minute, think about our overtime laws. It's been basically since back under FDR that we created overtime. That law has not been updated in 90 years. We should have overtime pay not time and a half, but double time. That way people make more money that work so hard and maybe get a little bit more time off. We should catch up to other advanced countries and say you get guaranteed at least 2 weeks paid vacation. That's not just a progressive issue. Actually, whether you're Democratic, Independent, or Republican, we find that people overwhelmingly think workers should get paid more, should be able to take time off, and then shouldn't have their prices jacked up by folks like Big Pharma or Big Oil.
You know, not too long ago, an agenda like this would have been criticized by the Republican Party as government overreach, too much government intervention. But I was thinking about this morning, that we actually live in a time where the Republican Party is pretty into government overreach. This is a very powerful president who wants to see a big, expansive government, different ideas of what it should do with it. But I wonder if you think that the country is actually comfortable with a more aggressive federal government. They just might have a disagreement on how they want the government to use that power.
Overwhelmingly, we hear from voters that they feel like the government is too bought off by corporations. And what I've heard from people that used to be Democrats, but now have just quit voting or maybe voted for Trump this last election, is they feel like the Democratic Party has either been weak or has been scared to stand up to those special interests that are screwing them over. And so what I've said is that the Democratic Party, if we want to be a winning and effective party again, it's not just about the old tired debate about going left or going center. It's about going directly to what working class voters are asking for. Let me give you an example. Right now, no matter where you come from on the political spectrum, gas prices are out the roof because those gas companies are jacking up prices in response to this war, and they're making a killing off of it. Billions of dollars in excess profits that they didn't work for, but that they're getting. So a populist response that is overwhelmingly popular is, let's tax those windfall profits and send every American family a rebate check worth $400 or $500. That is a powerful idea that progressive caucus members are championing, like Ro Khanna. But it's not just because it appeals to progressives. It's because the Progressive Caucus has shown that we are willing to lead the way and stand up to those oil executives that are making billions of dollars off of this war.
It's notable to me that obviously most of the co-sponsors on this are part of the Progressive Caucus, which is some of the more liberal members in the Democratic Party, but not all. That there are a couple members from swing districts that have signed on to this bill. I think, what is it, Seth Magaziner, another congressman.
Josh Riley has been great on this.
What does that tell you? Does it tell you that there was this kind of sense that you had to be more moderate, more conservative to win in these swing districts, and this kind of suggests that these lawmakers are saying, not anymore.
What I think I hear overwhelmingly from lawmakers is that voters don't think in like a political science class about where do you fall on this or that Washington, D.C. policy. They want to know if you're going to help them out or if you're just going to help yourself out here when you're in Washington, D.C. And that's why someone like Josh Riley, who's in one of the most competitive districts in America, not only co-sponsored the electric utility lowering electric costs bill, he actually co-authored it with us. And that's because these for-profit utilities are making so much money jacking up your electric rates. And they're taking that money and they're laughing about how on earnings calls they're paying for their private jets and their resorts while you have to pay their increasing electric bills. And this bill says, screw that, we're not going to do that anymore. And so that's why on the Lowering Utility Bills Act, we've got a very swing district member. I work with Senator Ruben Gallego on banning surveillance pricing, right? He is in a very swing Senate seat. And so this is about making sure that working class voters know we're for them first. That's, I think, the core identity of who the Democratic Party is supposed to be.
Let's talk a couple of the specific policies, and you brought up two that I'd like to talk about. One being, you brought up first the utility provision. Can you explain more specifically how this legislation would rein in utility companies?
Yeah, so most places in the country, not in Austin, Texas, because we have a public utility, but in most parts of the country, you have a for-profit utility for gas and electric. And they're a monopoly. They are the only provider in your area. And that occurs under federal law because, look, there's one set of wires, and so there's one company that's allowed to operate. But that company makes an agreement. Since they're a monopoly, they can only charge supposedly reasonable rates. But over the last few years, we've seen people's electric bills go up 40, 50, 60%. And when you go and see why these electric utilities are saying they have to raise their earnings, it's because they are padding massive corporate profits that you couldn't get anywhere else in the business world like this. And they're charging for things like lobbying or campaign contributions. It's insane. But they have such a lobbying force that we've not been able to rein them in before. And so now we're saying, if Democrats retake the majority, we are going to finally take on these for-profit electric companies and say, you can't jack up people's electric bills anymore because you want a private jet, or because you want a golf club membership, or if you want to pad your pockets with profits that you could not make in another industry, especially if you have a monopoly like this.
Do you want a more tightly regulated, for-profit, private utility system, or do you think that there should be more nonprofit or government-run utility companies?
Look, public utilities like we have in Austin or Seattle or San Antonio, you actually see lower electric bills. And so people that want to pursue that, I think that's great. But right now, we have the majority of the country under these for-profit electric utilities, and at a minimum, we should say you should not be able to rake in such high returns that we hear the investors on their earnings calls laughing about how they are screwing over the American ratepayer. That has got to stop.
Also, surveillance pricing, I think, is an issue that everyday Americans
it makes people so mad. Once you find out about this,
this
it's
is
like,
very Main Street now. So surveillance pricing, as I understand it, is companies can use AI to sort of, they can see if I'm searching flights to Maine this summer, and then they can adjust the price based off of my searches, when I'm going, or any other data they've been able to compile about.
Even worse,
correct?
Yeah, what JetBlue said on Twitter the other day is that somebody had to get to a funeral. So they had to get an emergency flight, and suddenly their prices were like $250 more than they were before. And then JetBlue responded to that person's tweet by saying, clear all your privacy data and cache, and then maybe the price will come down. I mean, that's crazy.
Is surveillance pricing the same thing as dynamic pricing, or are they
These things are different.
Okay.
So dynamic pricing is when a lot of people want a good, them increasing the cost.
Like concert tickets.
Like concert tickets.
Yeah.
Surveillance pricing, and there's all sorts of problems with some kinds of dynamic prices, but surveillance pricing is this new kind of way that people can price gouge you, corporations can price gouge you, that we've got to stop before it spreads like wildfire across the economy. We recently saw the Washington Post get caught doing this. Instacart was recently caught red-handed trying to do this. And what they do is they take in troves of your data, run it through an AI model to find out how much they can charge you, how much more they can charge you because of your individual circumstance. Or when it comes to the gig economy, how little they can pay you. So I'll give you an example. Traditional price gouging is like, let's say a hurricane is coming. They know a disaster is coming. It's illegal price gouging to jack up gas for everybody.
Gas, things like that.
But now if they know that you have a personal disaster happening in your life and you've got to catch a flight, that they can know your personal circumstances and give you a different price than me. Or let's say you are a gig economy driver that gets paid by an app. They could find out from your personal data that you've recently visited a pawn shop or that you're trying to get a payday loan, so they know your personal circumstances are tough and that they can lower the amount that they pay you individually compared to your neighbor. And I think that's got to stop. The price should be the price. A price tag is fairness because everybody should be charged the same amount.
Does it inherently, would it just basically tell companies they can't use surveillance data to set prices?
That's right. Okay. It would become illegal, basically illegal price gouging, just like it's illegal right now to jack up everybody's gas prices when a hurricane is coming. It would be illegal to charge you more for an airline ticket because they know you've got to get to a funeral.
It's interesting to me because some of these ideas, you could actually hear Republican support. Things like surveillance pricing I think is a really good example. Do you see any of this as an effort to maybe get that support across the aisle, or do you see this really more as part of a broader Democratic agenda that needs to be something like an HR 1 in the next Congress?
Look, in my view, this unites the voters and divides the lobbyists. And so I think that this could help define who the Democratic Party is as we hopefully regain a majority. And I've found huge amounts of Republican support on the ground from voters.
Yeah.
And I hope that those voters push their Republican lawmakers to follow suit. The problem, let's take AI surveillance pricing for an example. I think Republican voters, everyone I've talked to, is enraged when they hear that JetBlue story, hear about them using AI to jack up your prices. But I hear from Republican lawmakers that they want to have less rules on AI, that Donald Trump is pushing for deregulation of AI, and that's because of the AI lobby, not because of Republican voters. So I'm trying to do bipartisan work with voters, with everyday Americans, and then hope that they can push their politicians to do the right thing.
Do you have a sense of where leadership is on this in terms of making it center to the Democratic agenda?
Yeah, look, my job as Progressive Caucus Chair is to represent half of the Democratic caucus, more or less, and to make sure progressive priorities are heard by our leadership. These ideas you and I have talked about, these are some of the very first things that I talked to leadership about when I got elected to this role. And they were very receptive. And in the coming weeks and months, we will expect to see what their policy agenda is for the entire Democratic caucus. And I hope it includes into ideas like these.
Do you find, there's been a lot of talk about the soul searching in the Democratic Party after the 2024 election. I think economic issues are a good example of that. Do you feel like that's still a tug within the Democratic Party of how progressive, how populist to go on these economic issues?
Yeah, there's always been different parts of the Democratic coalition. There's always been that more pro-worker, populist, let's make sure that no matter your background, your race, where you live, that you should not get screwed over by corporations, should be able to make it. There's always been that part of our party. And then there are the sort of more corporate forces who just want Democrats to, and actually this was mentioned as a strategy once in the New York Times, quote, roll over and play dead. The idea that Democrats can win solely by pointing out how bad Trump is and then trying not to be noticed for anything else. I think that's a losing strategy. I think that, of course, we should point out when Trump commits criminal acts, when Trump hurts working class people. But I don't think that's enough. I think we have to show voters that if they put us in charge, how we'll actually make your life better. Being an anti-Trump party isn't enough. Of course, we should oppose what he's doing when he's hurting people, but folks also need to know who we really are, and we should show ourselves to be anti-big, greedy corporation and pro-everyday working class person.
I also, since I have you, I want to ask you about, I believe it's called the Home Team Act.
Oh, this is fun.
This is something that could provoke strong feelings in sports fans. So this bill, I should also note, is sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. Outline what you wanted to do.
Yeah, here's what the Home Team Act does. It says that before a major league sports team can get ripped out of your community and move somewhere else because a billionaire owner decides that they want to move the team, that they've got to give that community at least 1 year's notice and give the community a chance to keep the team at home. That means that they could go into a Green Bay Packers model that has successfully kept that amazing franchise in the smallest market in the NFL for over a century. Or it could also be a philanthropist or a business owner in the local community that wants to buy the team and keep it there. And of course, if nobody wants to buy it at a fair price, then the team could move. But I think this kind of bill would have kept the Supersonics in Seattle. This kind of bill would have kept the Houston Oilers in my city where I was born, because I remember the Houston Oilers getting moved by an ultra-rich owner out to Tennessee. Of course, Bernie Sanders remembers when his beloved Brooklyn Dodgers got moved.
He's still angry about that.
He's still upset about it because, look, the major leagues only exist because of federal law. Basically, federal law allows them to continue to exist as the monopoly they are. And I think in exchange for that, they shouldn't have billionaire owners be able to just rip your sports team out of your city, devastating fans, all because they're trying to basically make a buck and squeeze more money out of local communities. And even if you aren't a sports fan, I think this is important for taxpayers too, because as we see right now with the Chicago Bears, you have the Indiana government willing to give them millions and millions of dollars, and then the Illinois taxpayers have to then come in and try to spend millions more to keep the Bears in Chicago. And at the end of the day, everybody loses out except for the really rich owners of the team. So if you're from Chicago, this is a keep the Bears in Chicago bill.
How much of this, though, is maybe a way to pressure teams that try to extract taxpayer dollars in cities to build their stadiums or build their infrastructure and then benefit from that? Is it a way to also say, hey, you can't just take the taxpayer money and then move on?
Yeah, look, if communities are going to come together and help bring a team to their city, and then the billionaire owner can just threaten to leave unless you hand him even more money he doesn't need, I mean, we just see it happen over and over and over again. And so we need to have a situation where we have a level playing field, where the taxpayers and the fans have an ability to keep the team at home. I think it's also an opportunity to show people the ways that billionaire influence is messing not just with your life at work, but also your life after work. They're messing up the things that we love. They have so much power and money, and I think members of Congress should start standing up against them and standing beside fans, beside workers, beside consumers, beside everyday people. And yeah, if those billionaire owners hate me, well, I welcome that. They can come in and talk badly about me, but I would rather have most voters with me, and I think that's the direction we need to take the Democratic Party.
I was joking with my colleagues earlier, I'm from Philadelphia, and as I was thinking about the idea of any of those franchises
oh
trying
man,
to
if they tried to move the Eagles,
the
city.
It would cause a constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
would be much bigger
that's
problems on hand. Congressman, I've had a lot of fun talking to you, but before I let you go, we do a little thing called 1 minute.
Okay.
A little bit of a lightning round where I'm going to ask you a couple questions about your experience in Congress, and you have to answer quick.
Rise with the intention of disrupting the normal business.
I ask unanimous consent.
I ask unanimous consent.
The senator from Nebraska is recognized.
The gentlelady is recognized.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
What is the best part of being in Congress?
Well, like when so many of my friends right now feel like there's nothing they can do to make a difference, I'm, humbled to be in a job where I feel like I can make some part of a difference.
Who in Congress do you look to and think that guy's or that woman's really smart?
Well, I mean, everybody knows it's Nancy Pelosi. I mean, that's what everybody thinks when she walks around here. Pretty amazing.
If I land in your district and I'm starving, where's the first place you tell me to go eat?
Well, here's the problem. There's a current war happening in my district between Austin and San Antonio. It's this taco war about whose tacos are best, and I'm not allowed to take a side in the war, but what I'll tell you is any tacos anywhere in Austin or San Antonio is like a million times better than here in DC.
That's what every Texan says. I know that's true, but there
You
has
gotta
to
come.
be. I'm saying the first place you stop.
There is a place that, right on my way back from the airport that I sometimes can slide in before they close called Paprika Tacos. That's new, and you should check that place out.
I also like it too sometimes where I've been in Texas where the best taco is like in the back of a gas station. Like that's always when you know you're
There's
going to get a good
There's
taco.
a really good one, like in an alleyway that's attached to the back of a club in downtown Austin, Taqueria de Diez. And so for people watching, if you're in Austin, grab one of those.
Yeah, the grimier the place, the better the taco. I think that's true everywhere. Congressman Casar, thank you so much for talking to us. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
I appreciate it.